Hi, my name is Gaurav Dave, and today we will discuss one of the topics that bothers students the most before any CAT. This is what should we study or how do we prepare on the last day before CAT, and what do we do on the D day, the actual day of the exam. Please remember that CAT is essentially boiling down the entire effort spent over 6 months, 8 months, or a year into 3 hours. Now, does that mean that you take too much pressure on yourself? No. However, it also does not mean that you take the exam lightly. So, what are the things that you need to do and things that you need to avoid? Let's divide these into two parts. Firstly, we focus on the day before the CAT and then on the actual day. Both require a different mindset. So on the Saturday, that's the day before the CAT, what are the things that you need to focus on? The first question that I often get asked in my 15-year career in this field is, should I take a mock one day before the exam? Like most mentors, I will tell you no, unless it is absolutely necessary in terms of your preparation. Now, why am I saying no to taking a mock? There are two reasons to it. A lot of students over the years have reported that if they take a mock with full intensity on Saturday, somehow they feel slightly drained on the actual day of the exam, especially if it's the first slot. So if that is going to happen, then you want to be at your peak on Sunday rather than Saturday. The more important reason here is that just in case you have a bad practice test or a bad mock on Saturday, your actual confidence for the exam is going to be shattered. This will clearly reflect on what you do on Sunday. So in my book, taking a mock one day before the exam is a strict no-no, doesn't really help you too much. So is there anything else you can do? Yes, you can practice questions. Now again, when we talk about practicing questions, you don't need to practice 100, 200 questions. You need to possibly go through your notes, the important maths formulae, the properties, important concepts, practice a few LR sets just for the flow, practice a couple of RCs, etc. In general, revision. I would not even recommend doing this throughout the day. A couple of hours here and there, at the most 3 to 4 hours in the day is more than enough. The rest of the day has to be given to the non-academic aspects, that is, giving your body and mind enough rest. So when you go for the exam, you need to be well rested and having had a good night's sleep. Now these two are very important factors, sleep and rest. Similarly, you need to take special care of your diet and your health one day before the exam. So please avoid food that could cause you dietary problems on the next day. Now, I'm not asking you to starve, but please do not binge as well. You can do things that you like watching a movie, reading books, etc. But do not do anything in extremes. Two other factors to be noted for the day before the exam. Please ensure that all your documentation is in place and has been verified. You need to verify it against the admit card once. So read all the instructions of the admit card very carefully. Ask somebody else to read and verify all your documents. I have seen students missing out on one point in the admit card and panicking in the exam center. That will literally harm your chances in the exam. An important question that gets asked is, should I visit the center one day before the test? The answer to this is yes and no. Now, why do I say this? If you have been to that center earlier, it could be your old college, you've just been to that college, you know the locality, etc., then you don't need to go. But if it's a place that you've never seen, it's reasonably far off, then yes, it makes a lot of sense to at least have a look and feel of the place, understand where it is, how can it be reached, etc. If it is too far, especially in a big city like Mumbai, then it might not make sense for you to go personally. Ask somebody to go and do a recce. If you are in another city, people in Mumbai get centers in Pune, Nasik, etc., then it makes a lot of sense to go there one day in advance, and rest before you take the test. So these are the things that you need to take care of on Saturday so that you are absolutely primed to take the test on Sunday. Now, what do you do on the actual day of the test? So one, I would very strongly recommend that on the day of the test, you try and reach at least a couple of hours before the time of the test. You imagine that you have to catch a flight and you need to reach the airport. Just as we follow the airport check-in rules very strictly, you need to do the same here. Why push your luck and add to your stress? The other aspect to remember is that when you go for the test, you need to be well fed. So have a nice breakfast or a nice lunch depending on your slot. But please ensure that you don't have so much that you feel drowsy. Again, I'm saying this from experience of students who've had very heavy lunch and then gone for the exam and not been able to focus because they felt drowsy. Now, how does that help them? So take care of these very, very minor aspects. When you go to your center, you might meet other students who are preparing, who are reading out their notes, etc. You can of course revise. But please remember that this is not an engineering exam or a graduation exam where last minute mugging or last minute revision of formulae will help you pass the exam. Here, your effort over the last 6 months is what will matter. Don't unnecessarily discuss stuff with people, unnecessarily compare mock percentiles, etc. Focus on what you need to do, relax and wait for the exam to come. Once the exam starts, then those 3 hours is what you need to look at. Please do not panic. Do not put so much pressure on yourself that you freeze or become a rabbit in front of the headlights. No, not at all. You need to understand the importance of this test and how it can change your life. But remember that it is not a matter of life and death. So in case it doesn't go well, you always have another attempt, you have other exams as well. But give it the importance that it deserves and give it your best shot. Now in such a case, what do you do if one of the section doesn't go as well as you expected? There are 2 scenarios here. If the section turns out to be tougher than you expected, then it will be tougher for everybody. So the cutoffs are likelier to go down. In such a case, calibrate your expected number of attempts and start taking the test accordingly. On the other hand, if you feel that the paper is standard enough or on expected lines and you are unable to perform as well as you wanted, then step back, take a deep breath, rest for half a minute or a minute and then take the test again. That will often help you perform much better than what you were doing before the break. Coming to breaks, students often ask me, should they take breaks in the exam? My answer is definitely no unless it becomes a medical emergency. You need to train your body and mind not to require loo breaks or water breaks between the test. You need to time all your meals, etc. accordingly. Lastly, what do you do after the test? Now here, there are 2 aspects. For people in slot 1, the typical feeling is after the exam, they'll wait to see what happens in slot 2 and they'll pressurize themselves into trying to understand their performance. Yes, while this is natural, please understand that this is beyond your control. You took the test. Now you do not know what kind of scaling or normalization will happen. So just leave the results to their fate, let them come out and you'll know what next. For people in slot 2, it becomes even more important not to focus too much on what happened in slot 1. If slot 1 had an easy quant section or a tough DI section, does not necessarily mean that you will have the exact same difficulty. So if you go with preconceived notions, you might be in for a big shock. So go with an open mind. Again, after the test, don't really focus on what happened or whether slot 1 was easier, slot 2 was easier, what the scaling would be, etc. Just move on to the next test or whatever next you need to do and start preparing for it.